Most people would have walked away, but this poor girl chose to save a dying stranger, not knowing he was a billionaire. That single act rewrote her destiny. Amara's story begins in a little town called Oji River in Enugu State, Nigeria. If you had walked through the narrow, dusty paths of her village, you would have seen small mud houses with rusted roofs, women carrying water on their heads, and children running barefoot in the sun. Life was hard there, but for Amara, it was even harder. Her father, Okafor, had once been a man people respected. He was a schoolteacher, the kind who always had a kind word for his students, the kind who believed education could change lives. But the man who once stood tall in front of classrooms now lay weak on a raffia mat, his body wasting away from a sickness nobody could name. Each cough seemed to take a piece of him. His hands, once strong enough to guide chalk on a blackboard, now trembled as they reached for a cup of water. Her mother tried everything, boiling herbs, whispering prayers in the middle of the night, even pawning her jewelry for medicine. But nothing worked. It was Amara, at just 22 years old, who carried the heaviest burden. She had been one of the brightest students in her class, always dreaming of wearing a graduation gown one day. But dreams don't buy medicine, and hunger doesn't wait for certificates. So Amara dropped out of school. She traded her books for cement, her pens for bricks. Every morning, while the sun was still climbing into the sky, she walked to a construction site. There, with hands that blistered and bled, she mixed cement, carried heavy blocks, and tried to ignore the mocking voices around her. "Look at this one." One man sneered as she stumbled under the weight of a block. "Go back to the kitchen, little girl." Another laughed, spitting on the ground. The words cut, but Amara pushed on. She wasn't there for their approval. She was there for her father, for her family. Each naira she earned, she tucked away in a little brown envelope hidden under her pillow. That envelope was her father's lifeline, her hope, her reason to endure. At night, her body screamed from the pain of the day, but she would look at her father's face, sunken, tired, yet filled with quiet pride, and whisper to herself, "Just one more day. I can't stop now." It was on one of those punishing afternoons that life seemed to change. The sun beat down mercilessly on the site. Dust filled the air. Amara's clothes clung to her body, soaked in sweat. And then, from nowhere, a sleek black SUV rolled up. The workers stopped what they were doing, curious, their eyes widening at the sight of luxury so out of place. Out stepped a woman. Her lace gown shimmered in the sun, her sunglasses sparkled, and the confidence in her stride made heads turn. This was Madame Patricia, Madame P. She looked like someone from another world, a world Amara had only seen in glossy posters. Her eyes scanned the site and landed on Amara, who was bent over, mixing cement with trembling arms. "Young woman," Madame P called out, her voice smooth and commanding, "you're wasting your beauty and strength here." Amara froze, unsure if she should answer. The woman's presence was overwhelming. "I have a better offer for you," Madame P continued, her lips curling into a smile. "Come with me to Lagos. There's a high-paying job waiting for you. You'll never have to lift a brick again." For Amara, the words sounded like a miracle. Lagos, the city of lights, dreams, and endless opportunities. Could this be the chance she had been waiting for? That evening, she went home and shared the news. Her father lay on his mat, his breathing shallow, his eyes tired yet sharp. "Amara," he whispered, his voice weak, "be careful. Not every open door leads to heaven." Her mother, sitting by his side, squeezed her daughter's hand. "Go, my child. If God opens a way, take it. Bring us hope. Bring us healing." Amara's eyes filled with tears. She looked at her father, at her mother, and made a vow. "I'll come back with enough money to make Papa well again." The next morning, with a small bag and dreams larger than the sky, Amara boarded a bus to Lagos. Her heart raced with excitement, with hope, with fear. But Lagos was not what she had imagined. The moment she stepped into Madam P's world, the glitter peeled away. The job was not a job at all. The house she entered was filled with young girls dressed in short skirts and heavy makeup. Their eyes told stories of pain and resignation. It didn't take Amara long to understand. She had been trafficked. One evening, Madam P shoved her toward a door where a well-dressed man was waiting. "Go in there," Madam P ordered sharply. "Do what you're told, or you'll regret it." Amara's heart pounded, but she stood her ground. "I can't. I won't sell myself." The slap came out of nowhere, stinging her face, leaving her ears ringing. Madam P's voice was cold, cruel. "Then get out. You're useless to me." And just like that, Amara was thrown onto the streets of Lagos, alone, broke, and betrayed. The city that had promised dreams showed her only nightmares. She slept under bridges, her stomach empty more often than full. By day, she hawked sachets of water in traffic, weaving between angry drivers and blaring horns. Some cursed at her, others ignored her completely. She earned just enough to buy a piece of bread or a small plate of rice. At night, when the city lights flickered in the distance, Amara curled up on cold concrete, hugging herself against the chill. Tears often slipped down her cheeks, but she would whisper to the darkness, "Don't break, Amara. Don't break." She had no money, no friends, no safety. Yet deep inside, a small flame of hope refused to die. She didn't know it yet, but her darkest days were about to collide with a twist of fate that would change everything. One humid afternoon, after hours of dodging traffic and shouting, "Pure water, pure water," Amara's body could take no more. Her feet ached, her throat burned from the fumes of buses, and her stomach groaned with hunger. She walked into a small bush near the highway to relieve herself. But what she saw there froze her in place. A man lay crumpled on the ground. His white shirt was soaked with blood. His hands were bound. His breathing was shallow, ragged, as if each gasp could be his last. A bullet wound darkened his chest. Amara's first instinct was to run. Fear clutched her heart. What if his attackers are nearby? What if they see me here? But then, as she turned to leave, the man groaned softly. His eyelids fluttered. He was still alive. Amara's conscience screamed at her. She couldn't walk away. With trembling hands, she bent down and tried to lift him. He was heavy, far heavier than the bricks she used to carry at the construction site. But she dragged him inch by inch until they reached the roadside. "Help!" she screamed at passing cars. "Somebody help us!" But the cars sped by, drivers staring for a moment before looking away. Finally, a taxi slowed down. The driver stepped out, looked at the bleeding man, and shook his head. "Madam, I beg. This one don't die finish. I know one walla. He's not dead." Amara pleaded, her voice breaking. She pulled out the crumpled notes from her pocket. Her day's earnings from hawking. "Please, this is all I have. 1,100 naira. Take it. Just get us to the hospital." The driver hesitated, then sighed. "Enter." At the hospital, the nurses rushed forward but stopped short. "We don't have O+ blood in stock," one of them said. "He'll die without it." Amara's heart pounded. She knew her blood type. "I'm O+, she whispered, though her body was already weak from hunger. "Take mine." They looked at her in disbelief, but she nodded firmly. Moments later, she lay on a cot, her arms stretched out, blood flowing from her into the stranger's veins. Her head spun, her stomach knotted with emptiness, but she gritted her teeth. "Don't break, Amara. Don't break." And then, darkness swallowed her. When she opened her eyes, she wasn't on the floor of the hospital anymore. She was lying in a clean bed, an 4 drip in her arm. A nurse smiled gently at her. "You saved him," the nurse said softly. "Do you know who he is?" Amara blinked, confused. That man you brought in, the nurse continued. He's Chief Namdi, the billionaire tech mogul, chairman of Namdi Group. He was kidnapped, held for ransom. They got the money and still left him to die. Amara gasped. A billionaire? She couldn't believe it. Not long after, the door opened, and there he was, bandaged, pale, but alive. Chief Namdi walked slowly to her bedside, his eyes filled with emotion. He took her hand, holding it tightly. "You gave me life when you had nothing," he said, his voice thick. "I swear, your life will never be the same again." Amara's eyes filled with tears. For months, life had given her nothing but pain. Could this be real? Days later, Amara found herself in a world she had never imagined. Chief Namdi insisted she stay with him until she recovered. His mansion in Ikoyi was like something from a dream. Marble floors, sparkling chandeliers, rooms bigger than her entire house in Aji River. For the first time in months, she slept on a soft bed. She ate until her stomach was full. She felt safe. One evening, as they sat in the large sitting room, Chief Namdi asked her to tell her story. Amara hesitated, but his gentle eyes urged her on. She told him everything. The father who lay sick on a raffia mat, her mother's tireless care, the years of sacrifice at the construction site, the false promises of Madame P, the hunger, the bridges she slept under, the sachets of water she hawked. By the time she finished, tears had gathered in Chief Namdi's eyes. He shook his head slowly. "This world is full of people who take and take. But you gave when you had nothing." A week later, Chief Namdi called her into his study. On the table lay several documents. "I've arranged for your parents to travel to India," he said, his voice steady. "Your father will receive the best treatment money can buy." Amara gasped, her hands trembling. You would do that for me?" He smiled. "You saved my life, Amara. Let me save yours." It didn't end there. Chief Namdi bought her a 3-bedroom house in Enugu, a place where her family could live without fear of hunger or rent. He handed her a check for $200,000. Amara stood there, speechless. She had once begged drivers to buy water for 20 naira. Now, a billionaire was changing her life with the stroke of a pen. "I can never repay what you gave me," Chief Namdi said quietly. "But I can make sure you never suffer again." Amara's life transformed almost overnight. Her father returned from India stronger, healthier, his laughter echoing through the house once more. Her mother's face, lined with years of worry, now glowed with peace. And Amara herself, who once slept on cold concrete, now stood on firm ground, her dignity intact. People who heard her story couldn't believe it. A girl who had every reason to give up, who could have compromised her values, instead chose integrity. And that choice opened the door to her redemption. Chief Namdi often told his friends, "In all my years, I've seen greed, I've seen selfishness, but Amara gave me what no one else ever did, humanity." Her story became a lesson to all who listened. That kindness is never wasted. That dignity in hardship is a strength that always wins. That one selfless act can rewrite an entire destiny. Amara, once a hungry girl hawking water on the streets, now walked into a future filled with hope. Her father was well, her family restored, and her heart stronger than ever. Through it all, she never forgot the words she told herself in the darkest nights. "Don't break. Never break."